The mansion stood high above the city, walls of glass looking over lights that stretched like stars across the earth. It was filled with wealth, filled with everything money could buy, but it was also filled with silence. Inside that silence were two children, a boy and a girl, born to a billionaire who owned half the city. They were twins, bright in spirit, yet blind since birth. No laughter echoed in the halls, no footsteps of play, only the quiet sound of servants walking carefully, so as not to disturb the sadness that hung like fog in every corner. The father, powerful and proud in public, was powerless in private. He could buy anything, but he could not buy sight for his children. The children sat together often in the great hall, their little hands always reaching out to touch the world they could not see. They learned shapes by feeling, learned sounds by listening, but their eyes remained dark. Many doctors had come, famous ones, expensive ones. They promised miracles, tried experiments, but none of it worked. The father had grown angry at the world, angry at fate, and sometimes even angry at his children. But most of all, he was angry at himself. He had the power to build towers, but not the power to help them see. One night he stood by the window, watching the rain. He thought of the empire he had built, of all the deals and battles he had won in the business world, yet felt like a failure in the eyes of his children. His money meant nothing when they asked him questions like, "Father, what does the sky look like?" He had no answer, only silence. That silence broke him. He had built his fortune from nothing, fought every rival, but here he was, defeated by blindness. It was during this time that she arrived. No one noticed her at first. She was not dressed in riches, she did not come in a fine car. She walked up the long drive of the mansion quietly, with nothing but a small bag in her hand. She was a woman with kind eyes and a calm smile, one who carried herself like someone who had walked through storms, yet still believed in light. When the servants opened the door, she asked for work. She did not ask to be paid much. She said only, "I have skills that may help your children." The staff laughed at first, for many had come before her claiming such things, and all had failed. But the father, weary and desperate, called her in. When she stepped inside, she did not look at the gold frames or the shining marble floors. Her eyes went straight to the children. She knelt down and spoke softly to them, as if they were the only ones in the world. Her voice was gentle, and the children turned toward her, as if they could see her through sound alone. She did not promise them miracles. She only said, "I will be your friend, and together we will find a way." The father stood back, arms crossed, watching with suspicion. But something in her voice struck him. It was not pride. It was not greed. It was something he had not heard in a long time. Hope. The next days were strange to the household. She did not act like the doctors or the tutors before her. She did not force the children into routines. Instead, she listened. She guided their hands across objects, but not with impatience. She asked them what they imagined those objects to be. She made them describe the world they could not see, and then told them what colors and shapes matched their words. She was painting the world in their minds. Slowly, the children began to laugh again. Their laughter spread through the halls, a sound the mansion had not heard in years. The father tried not to show it, but he listened to their laughter from his study, his hands trembling as he set down his glass. He had nearly forgotten what it sounded like. The staff whispered that maybe this woman was different, though no one could explain why. At night, when the father walked past their rooms, he heard her telling the twins stories about stars, rivers, and places far away. The children asked endless questions, and she answered every one with patience and warmth. For the first time in years, their nights were not filled with silence, but with stories. But the father could not help his doubts. One evening he confronted her. "What makes you think you can succeed where all others failed?" he asked sharply. She looked at him, calm and unshaken, and said, "Because I am not here to fix them. I am here to free them." The words hit him like a stone. He had been trying to fix everything with money, but perhaps what his children needed was not fixing, but freedom. Freedom to dream, freedom to laugh, freedom to see the world in a way that only they could. And so, while the father wrestled with pride and fear, the children grew closer to the woman. They began to wait for her voice each morning, for her hand guiding theirs each day. They could not see her face, but they felt her heart. And in that heart was something greater than wealth. Something that hinted at a light waiting to be found. The next morning, sunlight filled the mansion halls, but for the twins, it was only warmth on their faces. They sat together at the table, listening for the soft footsteps they had come to know. When the woman entered, they smiled. They could not see her, but they felt her presence. She greeted them with laughter in her voice, and the room suddenly felt alive. The staff watched curiously. They had seen many people come and go, but no one had changed the air of the house so quickly. Even the children's tutor, who had grown bitter from years of failure, stood quietly in the doorway, unable to understand how this woman had reached them so easily. She began the day not with lessons from books, but with touch and sound. She placed a bowl of fruit before the twins and asked them to hold each piece. "Tell me what you think it looks like," she said. The children ran their fingers over the shapes, describing them in detail. One said the apple felt like a small sun, the other said the banana was like a moon. She clapped her hands gently and explained the colors, describing how red glowed like fire and yellow shone like morning. The twins laughed, and their laughter was so free that even the servants in the hall smiled to hear it. The father, standing in the shadows, could not deny the change. His children were speaking more, asking questions he had never heard them ask. Before, they wanted to know what clouds looked like, what rainbows were, what made the sea so endless. He had tried for years to distract them from what they could not have, but this woman encouraged their curiosity. It frightened him. He feared their hope would break them, yet he could not stop listening when they spoke with such joy. Days turned into weeks, and the children grew brighter. They no longer sat quietly in the corner, waiting for the world to pass them by. Instead, they reached for it. They stretched their arms out as if trying to hold the invisible pictures the woman painted with her words. Each night she told them stories of light, of stars, of lands where colors danced in the sky. They asked her to tell them more, and she did, never tiring, never losing patience. The mansion that had once been silent now echoed with their voices. But whispers began to rise among the servants. Some said the woman was strange, that she was not just a maid but something more. How could someone with no money, no title, carry such strength inside her? How could she succeed where doctors had failed? There were rumors that she had secrets, that perhaps she had known the children before. Some even feared she carried powers beyond human understanding. The father heard these whispers, and though he dismissed them in public, he could not deny the unease growing inside him. One evening, he called her into his study. The fire burned low, casting long shadows across the bookshelves. He poured himself a drink and gestured for her to sit, though she remained standing. "I do not know who you are," he said quietly, "but you are doing something to my children. They laugh, they dream, and yet you give them hope for something they never have. What if you are only breaking them further?" His voice was sharp, but beneath it was fear. He feared hope more than blindness. She did not flinch. Instead, she looked at him with calm eyes. "They are not broken," she said. "They are alive. What you see as weakness, I see as strength. They know the world in ways others cannot. I am not here to trick them. I am here to guide them." He frowned, trying to read her face, but there was nothing but honesty in her voice. For a moment, he felt something he had not felt in years, trust. And yet his pride would not let him show it. He turned away and muttered, "Do not fail them." She bowed her head slightly and left the room. The twins, unaware of the storm between their father and the woman, continued to thrive. They began to move with more confidence, no longer clinging to walls or needing constant direction. They used sound to guide themselves, echoing footsteps and voices. The woman taught them to listen to the world as if it were music. She taught them to imagine light even in darkness. Slowly, something began to change. Their dreams grew vivid. They started describing colors more clearly, as if they had seen them before. At first, no one noticed, but soon their words became too sharp, too exact, for children who had never opened their eyes to the world. One night, the little girl whispered to her brother that she saw flashes of light when she closed her eyes. He admitted the same. They told the woman, and she only smiled softly, telling them to hold on to that light. She did not shout it as news. She did not boast. She only guided them gently, as if she had expected it all along. The children clung to her words, believing something inside them was awakening. They began to whisper to each other at night, speaking of colors they had never been told about, describing images no one had taught them. It was as if their eyes, long closed to the world, were beginning to stir. The father remained unaware of these whispers, but soon he would have no choice but to see for himself. For the first time in his life, his children were walking toward a future that even his fortune could not buy. And at the center of it all was the mysterious woman who had brought light into their darkness. The mansion was no longer silent. Each morning the twins woke before the servants, eager for the sound of the woman's voice. She guided them to the garden, to the wide stone steps, to the balcony where the air was fresh and full of smells they had never noticed before. She asked them to describe the scents, the sounds, the feeling of the breeze. They laughed when she explained how colors filled even the air, how morning light was golden while the night carried silver across the sky. The twins clapped their hands, saying they could almost see it. The servants who passed by stopped to listen, drawn in by the joy that filled the once quiet house. The father pretended to ignore it, yet each time he heard his children laugh his chest tightened. He sat in his office looking over contracts, but the words blurred. He thought of all the years he had kept the twins sheltered, fearing disappointment. He had built walls around them just as high as the walls of his mansion. Now a stranger had walked in and torn those walls down with nothing more than kindness. It unsettled him. It also humbled him. One evening, the twins stood before their father with smiles on their faces. "We want to go outside the gates," they said. He froze. They had never asked for such a thing. They were blind, fragile in his eyes, and the world was full of dangers. But the woman placed a gentle hand on the children's shoulders and said, "Let them feel the earth beneath their feet." The father argued, saying it was unsafe, but the woman looked straight at him. "Keeping them in cages is more dangerous than any road," she whispered. He had no answer, so at last he agreed. The next day the mansion gates opened. The twins stepped carefully onto the path, holding the woman's hands. Their father followed close behind, tense and uneasy. For the first time, the twins heard the sounds of the city not as echoes through glass walls, but as living music. Cars hummed, birds sang, people called to one another. The woman guided them gently, telling them the names of things they touched: rough bark of a tree, the cold metal of a gate, the smooth stone of the pathway. The children laughed, describing what they imagined. For a moment, the father watched. In silence, stunned. He had forgotten the world could be beautiful even without sight. But that night, something happened. The twins whispered in their room that they had seen shapes behind their closed eyes again, this time brighter. The little boy described seeing a blue so deep it made him feel like he was floating. His sister said she saw sparks of green like tiny stars. They did not tell their father, only the woman. She knelt beside them and said, "Do not be afraid. The light is coming to you because you are ready." Her calm voice filled them with courage. Though neither child understood what was truly happening, In the following days, the children grew bolder. They moved through the house with more confidence, sometimes even without holding hands. The servants began to notice that the twins did not stumble as often, that their heads turned more directly toward sounds, as if following shapes in the air. The father grew suspicious. One afternoon he called the woman again to his study. "Tell me the truth," he demanded. "What are you doing to them? No one has ever restored sight to the blind. Are you tricking them? Are you tricking me?" His voice shook with fear and pride. The woman did not flinch. She answered softly, "I am not giving them sight. I am reminding them of the light they already carry." His face darkened, for he did not understand. Rumors spread outside the mansion. People in the city heard whispers that the billionaire's blind twins were changing. Some claimed the father had found a miracle doctor in secret. Others said the woman was no ordinary maid, but someone with hidden knowledge. There were even darker whispers that she was not human at all, that she carried a gift no one else dared to speak of. The father dismissed such talk as nonsense, yet even he felt a shadow of doubt. Who was she truly? And why had she come to his house out of nowhere? Late one night, the father wandered the halls and overheard her speaking to the twins. She told them stories not of this city, not even of this world, but of places among the stars. She described skies of violet fire, oceans that glowed with light, forests where the leaves sang when touched by wind. The twins gasped and asked, "How do you know these places?" She only smiled and said, "Because I have seen them." The father's blood ran cold. He stepped back into the shadows before she noticed him. He returned to his room but could not sleep. Her words echoed in his mind. He began to wonder if the whispers were true. Days passed, and the light inside the twins grew stronger. They no longer spoke only of flashes. They described entire images. The boy said he saw their father's face in fragments. The girl said she saw the woman's smile. The father at first thought it was their imagination. Yet when the twins walked directly toward him without reaching out their hands, his knees nearly gave way. He realized something impossible was happening. His children were beginning to see. The nights in the mansion grew restless. The father walked the halls, listening to the sounds of his children whispering in their room. Their voices were filled with wonder, describing things they should never have known. The boy spoke of the deep color of the ocean, though he had never left the mansion's gates. The girl described stars as if she had seen them scattered across the sky. Each word chilled their father's heart. He told himself it was imagination, yet doubt gnawed at him. How could blind children describe such things with such accuracy? The woman's presence was no longer small. She had become the center of the mansion. The servants obeyed her quietly, as if sensing a hidden strength. Even the twins' tutors began to step back, realizing her way was far more powerful than theirs. But the father remained watchful. He had fought many battles in business, outsmarted rivals, and crushed lies, and yet he could not unravel the truth about her. Each time he questioned her, she spoke gently, as though his anger could not touch her. That only deepened his unease. One afternoon, while the children rested, the father went into her small room. Unlike the grand chambers of the mansion, her space was bare. No jewels, no silks, no signs of greed. On the table lay only a small, worn book. He picked it up, and his hands froze. The pages were filled with strange symbols, glowing faintly as though alive. His heart pounded. He had never seen writing like it. He closed the book quickly, fearing its light might call others. When he placed it back, he noticed her standing at the door. She had entered silently, her eyes calm, her voice steady. "You should not touch what you do not understand," she said. For the first time, he felt small. That evening, the father sat alone in his study, staring at the fire. He remembered her words, remembered the book's glow. Could she truly be what the whispers claimed? Not a doctor, not a maid, but something else. He wanted to drive her out, to protect his pride. But he also knew the truth. His children had changed since she came. They had found hope, even light. If he sent her away, would he crush that hope forever? The thought haunted him. Meanwhile, the twins themselves were awakening in ways no one could deny. They began to walk without help, their hands reaching less and their steps stronger. One afternoon, the little girl shouted with joy that she had seen her brother's hand reaching out. She had seen it, not imagined it, not dreamed it, but truly seen it. The boy cried out the same. The servants gasped, unable to believe what they heard. The woman only smiled, kneeling between the twins, telling them softly, "The world is opening to you." The father, standing at the edge of the room, gripped the doorway so hard his knuckles turned white. From that day, rumors turned into storms. People from the city tried to send messages, desperate to know if the tales were true. A doctor begged for entry, demanding to study the children. A priest warned the father that unnatural forces were at work. Some said he should be grateful. Others said he should be afraid. The father shut his gates, unwilling to let the world see. He feared what people might do if they learned the truth. He feared what he himself might do if the truth was more than he could bear. The children, however, were not afraid. Their vision was weak, like flickering candles, but it was vision nonetheless. They saw outlines, shapes, glimpses of color. They ran to their father one evening, their hands trembling as they touched his face. "We see you," they whispered. Tears filled his eyes. For a moment, the walls of pride inside him collapsed. He held them tightly, unable to speak. The woman stood nearby, her eyes shining with something ancient, as if she had waited for this moment longer than anyone else in the room. But questions grew sharper. "Who are you?" the father demanded of her late that night. "No ordinary woman could do this. What are you hiding from me?" His voice was low but fierce, as though he feared the answer. She looked at him without fear, without hesitation. "I am only what I must be for them," she said. "And what they need now is truth." She walked away before he could stop her. The father sat in silence, shaking. He had never been denied so calmly, so completely. The next morning, the twins called out in excitement. They described light breaking across the sky at dawn. They described the golden glow of the sun rising beyond the horizon. The servants ran to the windows, stunned that children spoke with such accuracy. The father's heart shook as he realized his children were no longer blind. Something within them had awakened. But how? And why now? The answer lay with the woman. The children looked at her with shining eyes, whispering, "You are the reason we can see." And in that moment, the father knew there would be no hiding her secret any longer. Whoever she was, whatever she was, her truth would soon be revealed. Asterisk. The city outside still whispered, but inside the mansion the truth pressed heavier each day. The twins could now see outlines of the world. They traced their father's face with trembling hands, tears streaming as they shouted in joy. Servants fell silent, some crossing themselves in fear, others in awe. Only the woman remained calm. She guided them to the windows, asking them to describe the morning sky. Their voices were steady. They spoke of the golden light breaking over the horizon. Their father turned pale. They had never seen a sunrise before, yet their words were exact. That night, he could no longer contain his questions. He stormed into her room, the small chamber lit only by a single lamp. "Enough," he demanded. "I want the truth. You have done something no human can do. Who are you? Why my children? Why now?" His voice shook with more than anger, it carried fear. Fear of losing his pride. Fear of powers he could not control. The woman looked at him quietly, her shadow long against the wall. "If I told you, would you believe me?" she asked. He clenched his fists. "Try me," he hissed. She sighed and spoke words he would never forget. I am not of this world. I came here because they called to me, not with words, but with the silence of their souls." The father staggered back. His throat went dry, but she continued. She told him she had come from far beyond the stars, from a place where light itself carried healing. Her kind had wandered across galaxies, bringing hope where despair had rooted itself. She had been drawn to Earth not for riches, not for power, but because of the children. Their blindness was not a curse, she said, but a key. They were meant to open to the light in ways others cannot. And through them, this world may learn something it has long forgotten. Her voice was calm, but the weight of her words crashed through him like a storm. The father refused to believe at first. He shouted that she was a liar, a trickster, perhaps even a witch who had fooled them all. Yet deep inside, he knew the truth was already written in his children's eyes. He had seen their sight return with his own gaze. No trick could create that. He dropped into his chair, his body trembling. For the first time in years, the great billionaire felt powerless. He had fought competitors in markets, politicians in courts, even fate in his private life. But how could he fight against the stars? The woman said nothing more that night. She left him in silence. But when morning came, she began something new with the children. Instead of only guiding them with words, she placed her hands lightly over their eyes. The children gasped, describing visions more vivid than before. They saw not only colors but entire shapes, the arc of the sun, the lines of the trees, the shimmering air above the road. They laughed and clapped, running through the halls as servants wept. Their father could only watch, torn between awe and terror. News spread beyond the gates. Reporters gathered, desperate for proof. Some shouted accusations of fraud, others begged for interviews. Doctors offered fortunes for a chance to examine the twins. The father locked the mansion down, sending guards to push away crowds. Yet whispers grew louder, until they roared through the city. The billionaire's blind heirs could now see. And the source of the miracle was not medicine, but a mysterious woman who had come with nothing but a small bag and a gentle smile inside. The mansion, the woman warned the father. They are not ready to face the world yet. The gift must grow quietly. If too many eyes fall on them now, it will break them. But the father shook his head. The world already knows. And the world will not forgive me if I keep them hidden. His voice cracked with pride and fear. The woman looked at him with pity. It is not you the world is watching. It is them. And soon, they will be forced to choose what they will be. Her words made his blood run cold. What choice? What fate awaited his children? That evening, as the mansion grew dark, the twins walked hand in hand to the garden. They looked at the stars above, faint and scattered in the sky. For the first time, their eyes caught the shimmer. They cried out, calling their father to look. With them, he rushed to their side and saw their faces lifted, eyes glistening as they described constellations. The woman stood behind them, silent, her face turned upward as well. In that moment, the father realized something terrible. His children were no longer just his. They were part of something greater, something that might tear them away from him. The mansion gates rattled under the pressure of crowds. Reporters shouted, priests prayed, and doctors demanded answers. The billionaire kept his children inside, guarded day and night, but he knew he could not hide them forever. Inside the marble halls, the twins now walked without stumbling. They touched the walls only for comfort, not for guidance. Their eyes glowed with life. They saw colors, shapes, even faces, though their sight was still faint and new. To them, it was enough. It was a miracle. To the world outside, it was impossible. One evening, as the father paced in his study, the woman came to him. Her face was calm, but her voice carried weight. The time has come. They must step beyond these walls. He turned on her with anger. You want to take them from me. His voice thundered, echoing against the shelves. She shook her head gently. Not from you, from the darkness. They were never meant to stay hidden. The light inside them is not only for your family, it is for all who have forgotten hope. His pride battled her words, but deep inside he knew she spoke the truth. His fortune could no longer protect them. The world was already reaching. The next morning, the mansion. Gates opened for the first time in weeks. The twins walked out, holding hands, with the woman guiding them. Their father walked behind, heavy with worry. The crowd fell silent when they saw the children's faces. The twins lifted their heads toward the sky. We can see. They shouted. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people cheered, some wept, others fell to their knees. The billionaire felt his chest tighten as he realized the world now knew his children were living proof of a miracle no money could buy. Doctors rushed forward, but the woman raised her hand. Not yet, she said softly, and though her voice was calm, the crowd obeyed. The twins began describing what they saw, the color of the banners, the gold of the sun, the faces in the crowd. Their words were clear, sharp, impossible to deny. Reporters wrote furiously, cameras flashed, but none could capture the feeling that filled the air. For one moment, everyone there believed in something greater than themselves. That night, the father confronted the woman once more. His pride had been crushed, his wealth made meaningless by her presence. He asked her one last time, "What do you want from us?" "From me?" She looked at him with a sadness he could not understand. "I want nothing, but they have a path now, and you must let them walk it." His hands trembled. "What if I lose them?" he whispered. She placed her hand gently on his arm. "You will not lose them. You will see them become more than you dreamed." For the first time, tears streamed down his face. He had fought the world with power, but in this woman's presence, power meant nothing. The days that followed were unlike any before. The twins grew stronger, their vision sharpening each sunrise. They spoke of things even their father could not see, faint lights in the sky, colors hidden in shadows, patterns woven through the air. The woman told him quietly, "They are not just seeing with human eyes. They are seeing with the gift that was always inside them." He did not fully understand, but he no longer fought against it. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope, but soon, the woman began to fade from their lives. She was still present, still gentle, but her eyes often drifted toward the stars. One evening, the twins begged her to stay forever. She smiled sadly. "I was never meant to stay. My task was to guide you to the light. Now that light is yours." The children clung to her hands, crying, but she leaned close and whispered, "You will never be alone. The light will always be with you." And then, as dawn broke across the sky, she was gone. No one saw her leave, no door opened, no sound echoed. She simply vanished like mist in sunlight. The father stood with his children, staring at the empty space where she had been. His chest ached, but when he looked at the twins, he felt something he had never known before: peace. They looked back at him, their eyes bright, their smiles steady. "We can see you now," they whispered. He gathered them into his arms, holding them close, and for the first time in his life, he wept without shame. The woman was gone, but her gift remained. The mansion no longer felt like a prison of silence. Laughter and joy filled every room. The twins ran through the halls, describing everything they saw. The servants smiled, the city marveled, and even the father's heart grew soft. Wealth no longer seemed like his greatest treasure. His true fortune was the light shining in his children's eyes. And though he never saw the woman again, every night he looked at the stars and whispered a quiet thank you to the one who had changed everything.